Jackson County, situated in the far western mountains of North Carolina, is remote, rural, and incredibly beautiful. It's also the temporary home and workplace of approximately 1,200 migrant farm workers who work on Jackson County's tree, strawberry, and tomato farms. For the past decade, these workers have lived in unspeakable squalor, in substandard housing with no access to health care or schools for their children. Until Josie Ellis moved back to her hometown.
When I came back to Sylva, I went to work in public health. I went to nursing school to work in public health because I believe in public health. I found out that there were Latino children living in and around Sylva and that they did not qualify for Medicaid. They didn't have insurance and they were very poor, and it was very difficult to find medical care for these kids.
As Josie began providing services to the Jackson County migrant labor population, she discovered just how abused this population is. Small children were working long days, side by side in the fields with their parents, constantly exposed to pesticides, without good nutrition and without adequate sanitation. In response, Josie designed a program that would take medical services into the migrant labor camps.
Most of the provision of medical services is done at night in the migrant labor camps because the farm workers don't have sick leave, so they can't leave the fields during the day. And if they lose their, $2 an hour, that's pretty significant. So we'll start clinic about 7 or 8 o'clock at night and go until about midnight. We pack in everything. We carry lots and lots of bags and duffel bags and boxes of medicines, and we carry in our labs and all of our medical equipment. And if we're in a big barracks, we try to pick a corner where we can have some privacy and set up there. We'll use the bathroom for like STD exams or things like that, where we need a lot of privacy.
Josie searched for a local doctor to assist her in providing services. All of them turned her down until Dr. Mark Heffington.
3 years ago, I had no idea that there are even migrant farm workers among us, or people living in the squalid conditions and working in the terrible conditions that these men and women and children are working in. And I would have called anybody a liar that said that they were out there. And Josie took me out and showed them to me. And yeah, it's changed my life in a big way.
From the beginning of the program, I was sort of met with resistance from unexpected areas. People in my own agency made comments about, why are you starting this program and why are you helping the Mexicans?
Well, because Josie is basically the first person to come into the area and stand up for the rights of the farm workers, she's been met with a lot of resistance on all fronts. At work, in the school system, where she's tried to get farm worker kids into schools. Resistance from the growers, who don't seem to mind having medical care brought to their farm workers, but they're very resistant to having any kind of other information brought to the workers about their rights and about their about pay issues, wages and hours issues.
Well, public health traditionally takes a holistic view of health, and we understand that the socioeconomic conditions that people are in really affect their health. So that's part of public health. But we're also constrained by society, by where society thinks public health should be. And Josie definitely crosses those boundaries and wants to help the whole person.
She does a lot of health education. She talks about the different diseases, pesticides, all the things that they're chronically exposed to that OSHA protects us from as workers, that they didn't know that they were supposed to have that protection.
Well, I started out trying to just be a nurse and provide health care, and now I think that's not necessarily the best direction to go long term. I guess what I'm trying to do now is level the playing field a little bit, and I would like to see some justice in farm work. I think that when when you spend your days and many of your evenings in such appalling conditions with people whose lives, their entire lifetime will be spent traveling from migrant labor camp to migrant labor camp, and many of their children will not finish school, and their hopes for the future, you know, a lot of the kids we talk to don't even understand having hopes for the future. You know, I go home and my kids are fine. They have food and clothes and toys, and they're warm at night, and they look forward to things, and they have fun activities they get to do, and their reality is so different from the reality of so many kids in migrant labor camps. I spent a lot of time wondering why.
She's been in some very precarious situations. She's been in situations that have frankly frightened me for her safety.
I had a phone call one night asking for my children by name at 2 o'clock in the morning. Someone called, a man called and said, "How's Mikey? What's Mikey doing?" And then a few minutes later called back and said, "Is Eileen awake? Do you know where Eileen is? Is she awake?" And those are my babies, my little ones. And I've had personal threats, threats to hurt me physically. I've been scared a couple of times, but not enough to stop.
Despite the threats, the long hours, and the nearly constant bureaucratic hurdles, Josie has made a gigantic impact on the Jackson County migrant labor population.
Well, many of the Latinos in this area now have housing where they really didn't before. They were in situations that were just untenable, unacceptable, and they did not know that they had rights to a better life, better housing. They have food often where they didn't have food. They're receiving medical care. Lives have been saved.
She's got the children out of the fields and into school, so they're getting education. She's trying to make their health standards, their standard of living better. She has brought medicine to those folks that we didn't even know existed in this county.
She knows what's important in life. She knows what counts, and that's what she's all about. She's about the truth and about justice, and you can't be around her for very long without being inspired and feeling like you need to be doing something about what she's doing.
You know, I'm not trying to create any great social change. I'm not trying to do anything except have my neighbors treated like human beings. It's not a lot to ask.